Welcome to AI Unveiled, Hype versus Reality.
Picture this. An AI startup walks into a boardroom. They slide a deck across the mahogany table. They declare they've achieved $50 million in annual recurring revenue. The investors' eyes light up. The term sheets start flowing. But here's the twist. That revenue? It can vanish as quickly as a customer can click cancel. No penalties, no consequences, no predictability. Welcome to the era of the Revenue Mirage, where the most fundamental metrics of business success are being quietly rewritten and nobody's talking about it.
The Revenue Mirage, how AI startups are rewriting the rules of business metric.
I'm Asif Waliuddin, and this is AI Unveiled, Hype versus Reality, the show where we slice through the noise to reveal what's really happening at the intersection of artificial intelligence and human ambition. From our vantage point at NxtG.ai, closely tracking industry trends, we're witnessing something fascinating and, frankly, concerning. The traditional playbook that built the software-as-a-service revolution is crumbling under the weight of AI's unique challenges. Today, we're diving deep into a story that reveals the growing chasm between AI hype and AI reality. It's about revenue, yes, but it's really about trust, sustainability, and the future of how we build technology businesses in an AI-first world. Through ongoing conversations with startup founders and tech innovators, I've been tracking a troubling pattern. AI companies aren't just bending the rules of traditional business metrics. They're breaking them entirely, and the implications stretch far beyond any single funding round or revenue report.
The anatomy of a revenue mirage.
Let me paint you a picture of what's happening in boardrooms across Silicon Valley right now. Stephanie Palazzolo from the Information recently unveiled what she calls one of her favorite topics. And I have to admire her dark humor here. The sneaky ways AI startups are inflating their revenue figures. But this isn't just another case of creative accounting. This is symptomatic of something much deeper. The latest revelation? AI startups are offering contracts with zero cancellation fee. Think about that for a moment. In the traditional SaaS world, those cancellation penalties aren't just revenue protection. They're the foundation of predictable business models. They're what allowed investors to believe in recurring revenue in the first place. Drawing from over 2 decades in technology, leadership, and innovation, I can tell you this: predictability is the lifeblood of sustainable business. When a customer signs an annual contract but can walk away next Tuesday with no consequences, you don't have a customer, you have a tourist. But here's where it gets really interesting. These same startups are still pitching their revenue as annual recurring revenue to investors. It's like calling a rental car a purchase because you signed a yearly agreement. Technically true, but fundamentally misleading. The example that caught my attention was 11x, an AI sales startup. According to TechCrunch's reporting, they offered customers break clauses at just 3 months, making it trivial for clients to exit. Yet they included both trial customers and long-term contracts in their ARR calculations. From our first-hand experience building next-generation AI solutions, I can understand the temptation. AI is still largely experimental for most enterprises. Customers want to test, to explore, to understand what's possible before committing. But calling that exploration recurring revenue is like calling a first date a marriage proposal.
The deeper challenge.
But let's step back and ask the harder question. Why is this happening? Why are AI startups resorting to these accounting gymnastics? The answer reveals something profound about the current state of artificial intelligence adoption in enterprise environments. Through active collaboration with cutting-edge technologists and industry pioneers, we're seeing a fundamental tension between AI's promise and its practical implementation. Traditional software solves defined problems with predictable outcomes. You buy a CRM system, you manage customer relationships. You purchase accounting software, you track finances. The value proposition is clear. The use cases are established. The ROI is measurable. AI, on the other hand, is still largely experimental. Companies aren't buying AI solutions. They're buying potential. They're investing in possibilities. And possibilities, by their very nature, are uncertain. This creates what I call the AI adoption paradox. Enterprises need to experiment with AI to understand its value, but they can't commit to long-term contracts for experiments. Meanwhile, AI startups need predictable revenue to build sustainable businesses, but they can't deliver the certainty that traditional software provides. Grounded in practical applications we're actively deploying at NxtG.ai, I've seen this firsthand. Clients want to understand how AI will transform their operations. But they're not ready to bet their budgets on unproven technology. They want flexibility. They want exit ramps. They want the ability to say, this isn't working without financial penalties. And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. Sometimes AI implementations fail, not because the technology is bad, but because the problem wasn't well defined, the data wasn't ready, or the organization wasn't prepared for the change. When a traditional software implementation fails, you still have the software. When an AI experiment fails, you have expensive lessons and not much else.
The talent war and industry dynamics.
Now let's connect this revenue challenge to another story that emerged this week, one that illustrates just how precarious the AI industry has become. Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, revealed that Meta has been offering signing bonuses of over $100 million to poach top AI talent from his company. Let me repeat that, $100 million in signing bonuses alone. This isn't just about compensation, it's about desperation. When companies are throwing $100 million packages at individual employees, it signals something important. The talent market has become fundamentally irrational, and irrational markets rarely produce sustainable business models. Observations from the forefront of startup-driven AI innovation tell us that this talent war is creating a cascade of challenges. Companies are spending enormous sums on human capital, but they're struggling to generate predictable revenue streams. They're building impressive technology demonstrations, but they're having difficulty converting those demos into long-term customer commitments. The result is an industry caught between two extremes: sky-high operational costs and uncertain revenue streams. No wonder AI startups are getting creative with their financial reporting. But here's what concerns me most. This dynamic is creating perverse incentives throughout the ecosystem. Instead of focusing on solving real customer problems, companies are optimizing for fundraising metrics. Instead of building sustainable value, they're building compelling narratives for investors. Drawing from extensive real-world implementations and user feedback, I can tell you that the customers see through this. Enterprise buyers aren't stupid. They understand when they're being asked to fund experiments rather than purchase solutions, and they're responding accordingly, with caution, with flexibility demands, and with exit clauses.
Real solutions in a noisy market.
So where does this leave us? How do we separate the companies building real value from those simply building compelling investor presentations? Let me share what we're seeing from companies that are actually solving this challenge effectively. First, transparency. The AI companies that will survive this current cycle are the ones being honest about their business models. They're not trying to force AI experiments into traditional SaaS metrics. Instead, they're creating new frameworks that acknowledge the experimental nature of AI adoption while still providing meaningful business insights. Rooted in deep technical exploration and market validation efforts at NxtG.ai, we've identified several emerging models that show promise. Some companies are offering risk-sharing agreements. If the AI doesn't deliver measurable value, the customer pays reduced fees. Others are structuring their pricing around outcomes rather than usage, aligning their success with their customers' success. Second, specialization. The companies that are achieving real traction aren't trying to be everything to everyone. They're focusing on specific use cases where AI's value is immediately apparent and measurable. Take RC, mentioned in this week's industry roundup. They're building smaller, more efficient models that can run on standard hardware. That's not sexy, but it's practical. It solves real problems for customers who can't or won't use large cloud-based models. Third, education. The most successful AI companies are investing heavily in customer education. They're helping enterprises understand not just what AI can do, but when it makes sense to implement and how to measure success. They're building trust through transparency rather than trying to dazzle with technological complexity. From our perspective, working with both established enterprises and emerging AI companies, the winners will be those who can bridge the gap between AI's potential and business reality. They'll be the ones who can say, yes, AI is transformative, but let's start with this specific problem and measure our progress carefully.
Final thoughts.
Here's what I want you to remember from today's discussion. The revenue games we're seeing in the AI startup world aren't just accounting tricks. They're symptoms of an industry still learning how to create sustainable value. Insights gathered through direct interactions with early adopters and innovators tell us that we're at an inflection point. The companies that survive the next 18 months will be those that can deliver real, measurable value to their customers. They'll be the ones who understand that sustainable businesses are built on trust, not hype. For enterprise leaders evaluating AI solutions, my advice is simple. Look beyond the revenue claims. Ask about customer retention. Understand the contract terms. Most importantly, demand proof of concept before making long-term commitment. For AI entrepreneurs, remember that building something real takes longer than building something that looks impressive in a pitch deck. But real solutions create real value, and real value creates sustainable businesses. The AI revolution is real, but revolutions require foundations, not just fireworks. And the companies building those foundations, quietly, carefully, honestly, those are the ones that will still be here when the hype cycle ends. This is AI Unveiled, hype versus reality. Until next time, keep questioning, keep building, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
AI Unveiled, Hype versus Reality is brought to you by NxtG.ai, where the future of human AI synergy is being written today. Stay curious, stay bold, and let's build what's next. Visit NxtG.ai to see the cutting-edge work we're doing, pushing the bleeding edge of advanced AI in action. And don't forget, connect with your host Asif on LinkedIn and subscribe to the newsletter to join us on the race's edge.